software. So this is a method for creating an accurate mechanical Geneva movement with graphics software. In this case, I'm using CorelDraw 2019. All of the tools in this tutorial are using features that go back to much earlier versions of Corel, so you just need to find where those menus and features are. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is figure out how many points in our Geneva. We're going to be making a 5-point Geneva today, but this method will work with 4, 5, 6, what have you. Divide 180 by however many points on your Geneva. So we're making a 5-point Geneva, and so 36 is the number of degrees. So remember that number. And what we're going to do first is get this out of the way. We're going to draw a horizontal line holding down the Control key. And we need to copy this line at 36 degrees. So we're going to go up to Window, Dockers, Transform, and we're going to adjust this to 36. And I want to make one copy and apply. So now you have the line at 36 degrees. Okay, go back to your Select tool. Grab the node on this line and drag it up until it snaps to that line. Okay, so now this is going to become the origin of our Geneva wheel. So we're going to draw an ellipse using this as the origin. I'm going to hold down the Control and the Shift key together so that we draw a nice circle using that as the center. And we're going to make, let's say, a 4-inch diameter Geneva wheel. So I'm going to change this dimension to 4. I'm going to make sure my dimension lock is on so that it stays circular. And there we have our 4-inch diameter. Okay, so now let's take this line, and we want to make a projection off of this line at 90 degrees. There's a couple of ways to do that, but since we're here, we're just going to type in 90 and make a copy and transform it. Oops, okay, so there it is. So now what I'm going to do is drag it and snap it right to the edge of that circle. Okay, good. Now we need to figure out where our pin is going to go. And the easiest way I've found to do this is by using the 3-point ellipse tool. Okay, 3-point ellipse tool. We make this the origin, drag up until it clicks to there, and then if you hold down the Control and the Shift key, it'll draw a perfect circle with this as the origin. Voila. So now we need to make another circle, and we can just use the normal circle tool for that, using this as the center, and we're going to hold down the Control and the Shift key to make it. And I'm going to drag it out until it intersects with that circle. This intersection right here is where the pin's going to go. So now we're going to, let's see, I guess I can delete this circle just for clarity's sake. Okay, so now we're going to draw a circle at that intersection, holding down the Control and the Shift key. And I want my pin to be a 1/4 inch, so I'm going to change that to 250. And so there we have a 1/4 inch pin. So now we need to copy this pin to this intersection. So I just right-click so that I drop a copy of it right there. And we're going to use these 2 pin locations to create a slot. But before we do that, you should copy this upper pin to the clipboard. Okay. I'm going to switch to wireframe view because it'll give us a little bit more accuracy. And I'm going to zoom in way up here, and I'm going to drag a guideline to that intersection right there, and I'm going to click it again so that it's a rotational guideline, and I'm going to make the origin right there. Okay, so now we can zoom out until we can see our 2 circles, and I'm going to attach that guideline at the point on this circle that is a tangent. You'll notice that the cursor changes from edge to tangent at exactly the point that we need. Okay, so now we're going to make a 3-point rectangle that's basically a box that's tangent to those two circles. So instead of it being a rectangle, we're going to adjust it to 3-point rectangle. I'm going to start up here at that point, and I'm going to drag down here to that intersection, let go, and then I'm going to pull across until it snaps to that edge. So now we have a nice rectangle that's tangential to those two circles. Okay, so now we're going to use our shape tool. Let's see, Windows, Dockers, shape. Okay, so now we're going to use our shape tool and we're going to weld those three shapes together. So we select weld, and we're going to select that circle, and we're going to weld it to that rectangle, and then we're going to weld that shape to that circle, and now you have your slot. At this point, you need to paste that upper pin back in. Okay. Voila. So now we need to create the spinning disc, the stop disc, or whatever it's called. I'm sure there's terminology for that in the world of Geneva movements. Anyways, we're going to use this intersection as our origin. I'm going to hold down the Control and the Shift key, and I'm going to drag up. Now this is kind of arbitrary. The size of this circle affects the thickness of the edge of your Geneva. Okay, so if we made it this big, that would be a very, very small section of material right there. And since this thing is slamming into that stop disc several times per rotation, that may not survive. So I want that to be a little bit thicker. And I'm holding the Shift key down so the origin doesn't change. And I'm going to make it, yeah, that looks reasonable. That looks reasonable right there. Okay, so now we have to make our cutaway in this stop disc so that it's going to clear the points on the Geneva as it spins. And all you do is grab a guideline and snap it to the edge of that circle. And then you're going to draw another circle using the intersection of these two lines as its origin. Hold down the Control and the Shift key. And you're going to come all the way down to where it intersects with that line. And that is how big our cutout has to be. Okay. Now before we cut it out, it's important that you select this and copy it to the clipboard. And you'll see why in a step or two. Okay, so now we're going to use this circle as a tool to trim away this circle. So we're going to go to Trim, and we're going to click on Trim, and we're going to click here, and voila, now we have our stop disc. Okay, now here's the thing. You don't want this to have a zero clearance on the rotating Geneva movement, otherwise it's going to create a lot of drag. You need to have a little bit of slop or clearance. And the way that you do that is by selecting it and adding something called a contour. So we're going to go up here to, let's see, where is it? In Effects, Contour. Okay, so this is kind of arbitrary again. It depends on how accurate your machine is, how much clearance you want this thing to have. I found that about 5/1000ths of an inch is enough for what I need to do. So I've set this as an internal inside contour, one step, and I've set it to 5/1000ths of an inch. And so you click Apply, and we're going to zoom in here so you can see what that did. It created an inner shape that's 5/1000ths of an inch smaller at any point. Okay, and so now we need to delete the outer shape. So we're going to select that, and we're going to go to Object. Hang on. Going to go to Object, Break Contour Apart. So that separates those two, and we're going to select the outer one and delete it. Boom. So now that's gone. So there's your stop wheel, and there's your pin, and since those two are locked together, we're going to go ahead and combine them, which in Corel is the same thing as mechanically locking them together. And I found that it's helpful at this point if you create some center marks for these two circles. So I'm just going to kind of zoom in here, and I'm going to draw a little horizontal line. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees by holding down the control key. Anyways, so I'm going to combine those. So now we have a good little center mark, and I'm going to drag that right to that intersection, and I'm going to copy it over to this intersection like so. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and group it with these shapes. So object, group, you could combine also, but I found I like to okay, fine. So now you want to paste that circle back in because we're going to use it combined with this slot as a tool, and you'll see why in a minute. Okay, so we pasted that circle back in, and now you want to take that circle and you want to select that slot, and you want to combine those two shapes like so, and then you want to make copies of that at the 5 points around the outside. Now, let's see, 5. This time we're going to be using 360 degrees, so 360 degrees divided by 5 equals 72. Okay, so what you want to do is select this shape. You want to move the rotational origin. This is very important. You want to move the rotational origin over to the center of this circle. Okay, go back to transform. We're going to make copies at 72 degrees. So you set this to 72. We're going to make 4 copies because we've already got 1, which will total up to 5. And you hit apply. And now you've got your basic wheel. All you have to do is combine all of these shapes. Object, combine, and then use that as a tool to trim away your Geneva wheel. So now we're going to go back to shaping. We're going to click on trim. We're going to select our wheel, and voila, you have a Geneva wheel. Now let's see, we can delete this circle. We don't need that anymore. And we don't need these lines anymore. We don't need our guidelines. And we don't need that line. Okay, so before we finish it, you need to make a support disk, which is also kind of arbitrary. It just starts here in the center. And you make it whatever size you feel comfortable with as far as, you know, supporting your pin. And there you have it. Finished Geneva wheel.